I never imagined I'd be typing this out, but something inside me is screaming to let it out. 4 years I thought I had everything figured out. Married for over 2 decades, a good home, a son who's grown into a responsible young man. My life looked perfect on paper, but deep down I felt like a shadow of myself. My husband and I barely talk anymore, not like we used to. Work stress, routines, and time have turned our conversations into schedules and grocery lists. I'd convinced myself that was normal. People settle, right? That's what I believed. Until something unexpected shook me awake. It started so innocently that I didn't even notice it at first. My son has this friend, someone he's known for a few years. They're close like brothers. He's polite, respectful, always greets me with a smile when he comes over. I've seen him around enough times, usually during their gaming marathons or study sessions, but I never paid much attention. To me, he was just another kid in my son's circle, someone who raided my fridge and laughed too loud in the living room. That's all he was, until the day it wasn't. One afternoon I came home from running errands. My son and his friend were in the kitchen, laughing about something on their phones. I said hello, put the bags on the counter and started unpacking. Then it happened, so small, so simple, but it hit me like a spark in the dark. He looked at me and said, "You always smell so nice when you come home. What perfume is that?" I froze for a second. Nobody says things like that to me anymore. My husband hasn't noticed what perfume I wear in years. It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them. Casual but deliberate, like he meant it. I brushed it off, told him the name of the perfume, laughed it away. But the compliment stayed with me longer than it should have. That night, lying in bed next to my husband, I thought about it. Why did it matter? Why did something so trivial feel so significant? I tried to shake it off. I'm his friend's mom. He's young, full of life, and I'm not old, but I'm not in his world. Still, something inside me woke up that day. Something that had been buried under years of routine and responsibility. I hated admitting it even to myself, but I felt seen, and it had been so long since anyone made me feel that way. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing things I never noticed before. The way he always thanked me for dinner when the boys ate at our place. How he'd hold the door for me without thinking twice. His laugh. God, that laugh, so easy, so full of energy, filling spaces that had felt cold and quiet for years. I hated myself for noticing, but I couldn't stop. It wasn't like I was staring or planning anything. It was just there. A warmth I didn't expect, and it scared me because it felt good. I started finding reasons to linger in the kitchen when they were around. Not in an obvious way. Just long enough to hear their jokes, to feel the hum of life buzzing through the house. My son was always so wrapped up in their conversations that he didn't notice me at all. And maybe that's what made it worse. It gave me the freedom to notice the details I shouldn't have. The way his voice dipped when he spoke seriously. The slight tilt of his head when he asked me something politely. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking, but deep down I knew what was happening. And I hated that I didn't want to stop it. One evening they were both heading out, and as they left, he turned to me and said, "You have a great smile. Makes the place feel warm." I laughed awkwardly, thanked him, and closed the door behind them, but my heart was pounding like I'd done something wrong. I went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror, and asked, "What are you doing? Why does this matter to you?" But I had no answer, only the truth I didn't want to face. I'd been starving for this kind of attention, and now that I'd had a taste, I couldn't unfeel it. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend, because how do you say something like that without sounding insane? I love my son. I love my family. This isn't who I am, or at least it's not who I thought I was. But every time he came over, that thrill returned, creeping under my skin like electricity. I caught myself wondering stupid things. What he thought about me, if he noticed the effort I suddenly put into making dinner nicer, if he saw how I tried a little harder with my hair. It was pathetic, and I hated myself for it. But hate didn't stop me. If anything, it made the craving stronger because it felt so forbidden. That was the start. Just words, just glances, nothing more. But something had shifted, and I couldn't pretend it hadn't. I went from living in gray to suddenly seeing color again. And no matter how wrong it was, part of me didn't want to go back. I didn't know where this was headed. I just knew that for the first time in years I felt alive, and that scared me more than anything. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just an overactive mind craving attention, but I knew better. Every time he came over, something shifted in the air, like an invisible thread pulling me toward him whether I wanted it or not. I started feeling it before he even walked in. I could hear the front door opening and feel my chest tighten, my pulse quicken like I was waiting for something forbidden. It wasn't normal, and I knew that, but knowing didn't make it stop. It only made me more aware. The first few times after that night I played it cool, or at least I thought I did. I kept my words casual, my tone light, but deep down I was analyzing every glance, every pause, every time his voice softened when he spoke to me. It wasn't anything obvious. He didn't flirt, not outright. But there was something in the way he lingered after saying thank you, the way his eyes held mine for a second longer than necessary. Or maybe it was all in my head. God, I hoped it was in my head, because the alternative terrified me. One day they were in the living room gaming like always, and I brought in some snacks. Nothing unusual, nothing special, except I'd spent an hour making sure it all looked perfect. He reached for a plate and his fingers brushed mine. It was quick, so small it should have meant nothing, but the heat of it shot straight through me like a jolt. He looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "Thanks, you didn't have to go all out. Just words. Just gratitude." But it left me rattled in a way I couldn't explain. I walked back to the kitchen with my hands trembling, asking myself why the hell something so harmless felt like a spark setting fire to dry grass. After that, I started catching myself doing things I never used to. Standing closer than necessary when I handed him something. Laughing at his jokes more than I should. Wearing that perfume he once complimented, even when I didn't have anywhere to go. It wasn't just about him, it was about me. About feeling wanted, feeling alive, feeling like someone actually saw me and not just the role I played every day. But the guilt came right along with it, whispering in my ear every night. "You're his friend's mom. You're married. What are you thinking?" I told myself the same thing every time. That nothing would happen, that this was just harmless, a little ego boost. But lies sound sweetest when you want them to be true. The moments got bolder, or maybe I just started noticing more. One afternoon I walked past the living room and heard them laughing about something. My son ran upstairs to grab a charger, leaving him alone on the couch. He looked over at me, and for a second it felt like the world narrowed to just us. No noise, no distance, just the weight of his stare. He didn't say anything, just smiled in this slow, knowing way that sent my thoughts spiraling. It wasn't a boy's smile. It was a man's, confident and calm, and it scared the hell out of me because I realized then that if he wanted to cross a line, I wasn't sure I'd stop him. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every glance, every accidental touch, wondering if I was imagining it all. But the way my body reacted, the way my chest tightened and my skin burned under his gaze, that wasn't imagination. That was real. And the worst part, I didn't hate it. I should have. I should have been disgusted with myself, but instead I lay there in the dark craving the feeling again, craving something I hadn't felt in years. Being wanted, truly wanted, not out of obligation or routine but out of pure, raw desire. Days later it happened again. Another touch, this time deliberate, or at least it felt that way. I was reaching for a glass on the counter when he stepped behind me to grab something from the fridge. His hand grazed my lower back, light as a whisper, and he murmured, "Excuse me." Just 2 words, polite, nothing more. But my breath caught like he'd said something intimate. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. He didn't linger, didn't make it obvious. Just moved past me and went back to the living room like nothing happened. But for me, everything happened in that second. That touch branded me, carved its way into my mind like a promise I wasn't sure I could keep resisting. I told myself I needed to stop this before it got out of hand. Avoid him. Make myself busy. Don't linger when he's around. But the truth is I didn't want to stop. I wanted more. I wanted those fleeting touches, those lingering glances, those words that made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. I wanted to feel that rush again. The kind that makes your stomach flip and your breath hitch like you're standing on the edge of a cliff, one step away from freefall. And that realization hit me harder than anything else. I wasn't just craving attention. I was craving him. That terrified me. Not because it was wrong, though it was undeniably, but because of what it said about me. About the cracks in my marriage, in my life, in the person I thought I was. I always believed I was loyal, steady, unshakable. But one smile, one hand brushing mine, and suddenly I was questioning everything. Wondering what else I'd been lying to myself about all these years. Wondering if maybe this wasn't about him at all. Maybe it was about me finally waking up after being numb for so long. Or maybe that's just another excuse, another lie I'm telling myself so I don't have to admit the truth. I'm standing at the edge, and a part of me wants to jump. I didn't plan for it to happen. If you asked me the night before, I would have sworn on everything I loved that I'd never cross that line. But life doesn't ask for permission before it shifts everything. Started like any other day. My son was supposed to be home, but he got called into work. He texted me while I was in the kitchen. I didn't think much of it. Just another quiet afternoon. Then there was a knock at the door. When I opened it and saw him standing there, something inside me froze. He smiled, said he'd left something behind the last time he was here. I told myself it was fine. Just let him in, let him grab it, no big deal. I didn't know that one decision would undo every boundary I thought I had. He stepped inside, and suddenly the house felt too small, too quiet. Every sound, the click of the door closing, the hum of the fridge, the rhythm of my heartbeat, felt louder than it should have. I told him where his stuff was, tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the tension crackling between us like static in the air. I could feel his presence even when he wasn't touching me. That's the thing nobody tells you about temptation. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It waits until you're tired of saying no, until the silence between you feels like an invitation you can't ignore. He found what he came for, but he didn't leave right away. Instead, he lingered, leaning against the counter like he had all the time in the world. We started talking, nothing heavy, just casual stuff. But then the conversation shifted, slow and deliberate, like a tide pulling me out before I realized I was too far from shore. He asked if I'd ever felt like life turned into the same day on repeat. If I ever wondered what it would feel like to break free, just for a second. My throat tightened because he wasn't just asking. He was speaking to something inside me I hadn't admitted to anyone. I nodded before I could stop myself. That's when everything changed. He stepped closer. Not enough to scare me, just enough to make my breath catch. I should have walked away. I should have told him to leave. Instead, I stood there, frozen, my pulse pounding like a warning I couldn't hear over the roar in my head. Then he touched me. Just a light brush of his fingers against my hand, but it was enough to shatter whatever resolve I had left. My body betrayed me before my mind could catch up. I didn't pull away. I let it happen. God help me, I wanted it to happen. The first kiss wasn't planned. It wasn't even a kiss at first. Just a pause, a breath shared too close, and then his lips were on mine. Soft, hesitant, like he was giving me a chance to stop him. I didn't. Kissed him back. I felt the heat of his mouth, the strength in his hands, and for the first time in years I felt alive. Really alive. Every nerve lit up. Every part of me screaming with something I'd forgotten I could feel. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about need. About being seen, wanted, touched like I mattered. And in that moment I didn't care about right or wrong. I just cared about how it felt to finally breathe again. Time blurred after that. Minutes felt like seconds, seconds like hours. There was no thinking, no logic, no voice in my head telling me to stop. Just heat and hunger and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding like a drum. When it was over, when reality finally crashed back in, it hit me so hard I could barely breathe. We didn't speak for a long time. Just sat there, the weight of what we'd done pressing down like a storm. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. What could I say? Sorry didn't cover it. This can't happen again. Felt like a lie even before I could form the sentence. Eventually he stood up, ran a hand through his hair, and said he should go. I nodded, my throat tight, my chest aching with something I couldn't name. As he walked out the door, I felt everything all at once. Guilt, shame, exhilaration, fear, longing. I wanted to call him back and tell him to stay. I wanted to pretend it never happened. Both truths burned inside me, tearing me apart. After he left, I locked the door and pressed my back against it, shaking. My hands were trembling so hard I had to grip the doorknob just to stay upright. Felt sick. Felt euphoric. I felt like I'd stepped off a cliff and was still falling, no ground in sight. My mind kept screaming, "What have you done?" But my body was humming with a memory I couldn't erase, no matter how hard I tried. That kiss was seared into me, carved deep where no amount of guilt could reach. I told myself it was a mistake, a one-time thing, something I'd bury and never speak of again. But deep down I knew the truth. That wasn't an ending. It was a beginning I didn't ask for but couldn't turn away from. Because even as I stood there, drowning in shame, one thought pulsed louder than all the rest. I want to feel that again. And that terrified me more than anything else. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the slow rhythm of my husband's breathing, feeling like I'd become someone I didn't recognize. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt his lips on mine again. His hands on my skin, the heat of that moment consuming me. It wasn't just a memory. It was alive inside me, pulsing with a dangerous kind of energy I couldn't shut off. And then came the guilt, creeping in like poison, twisting every thought into something sharp and unbearable. I kept asking myself the same question. Why didn't I stop it? But I already knew the answer. I didn't want to. The next morning I moved like a ghost through the house, going through motions without really being present. My husband kissed me on the cheek before heading to work, and for the first time in years, I felt sick from a touch that should have felt familiar. Everything about him, his voice, his easy smile, felt like a weight pressing on my chest, suffocating me with the reminder of what I'd just done. I wanted to confess, to rip the truth out and throw it on the table, but I didn't. Because the truth wouldn't fix anything. It would destroy everything. All day, I waited for the guilt to drown the craving, but it didn't. It sat there side by side with the shame, both of them feeding off each other like some twisted cycle. I kept replaying the sound of his voice, the way he looked at me like I was something more than just someone's mother, someone's wife. That look scared me because it made me feel like I'd been living half dead for years and didn't even know it. Now that I did, how was I supposed to go back? When my son came home later, acting like nothing had changed, I thought I'd collapse from the weight of it. He mentioned his friend casually, said they might hang out this weekend. My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile and nodded, pretending like the word didn't hit me like a spark to dry kindling. After he went upstairs, I locked myself in the bathroom and gripped the sink until my knuckles went white, staring at my reflection like it might give me answers. But all I saw was a stranger with hunger in her eyes, a woman who'd crossed a line she could never uncross. I told myself to end it, to cut it off before it got worse. But what does worse even mean when the damage is already done? I didn't text him. I didn't call. But I didn't block him either. And when my phone buzzed that night with a simple message, "Are you okay?" I stared at it so long the screen dimmed and went black. My hands shook as I typed back, "I'm fine." Just 2 words, but they carried all the weight of what we both knew and weren't saying. His next message came minutes later. "I can't stop thinking about you." My heart nearly stopped. I set the phone down, walked away, came back, read it again like the words might change. They didn't. And the worst part, I didn't want them to. I didn't respond that night, but my mind didn't let it go. Every sound outside, every car passing by, felt like it might be him coming back. My heart ached with fear of being found out, of losing everything. But threaded through that fear was a thread of something darker, hope. Hope that I'd see him again. Hope that this wasn't over. That hope disgusted me, but it was there, throbbing beneath the guilt like a pulse I couldn't kill. That's when I realized something that shook me to my core. I wasn't just afraid of the consequences. I was afraid of how much I wanted this, even knowing what it could cost me. The days since then have been a blur of control and collapse. I smile when I'm supposed to, cook dinner like nothing's wrong, laugh at the right moments. But inside I'm unraveling. Every knock at the door makes my breath hitch. Every time my son mentions his name, my heart hammers like a guilty drum. I hate living like this, torn between who I was and who I'm becoming. But hate doesn't erase the truth. The truth is, I want to feel that rush again, even as it eats me alive. People like to believe affairs are about X, about lust and nothing more. But it's not that simple. It's about being seen after years of feeling invisible. It's about someone looking at you like you matter, like you're not just a role someone else depends on. It's intoxicating and it's lethal. I know that now. And still, knowing it doesn't make me want it any less. I don't know what happens next. Maybe he'll come over again, and I'll let it happen. Maybe I'll find the strength to end it before it destroys everything I love. Or maybe the truth is I don't want to stop. Not yet. That thought is the darkest one of all. But it's the only honest thing I have left. I keep asking myself if I'd do it again. And the silence that follows isn't an answer. It's a confession.